everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Export to Japan podcast. And for this episode, we are going to be looking at the question of market entry into the Japanese market. And one of the most common questions that we get asked from international companies that are looking to enter the Japanese market is, what is this kind of magic formula? What do we have to do in order to be successful in Japan? And the answer to that, of course, is that there is no kind of textbook answer. There's nothing we can say where if you do this, this, and this, you will be successful. It's much more complex than that. And our special guests that are joining us today are going to share with us one example of how they came together and found success. And for me, this is quite a unique one and a very interesting one. And therefore, I'm very much looking forward to this discussion to learn more about this organization and how they've come together and how they are going about creating their success in Japan. And to help us with this discussion, I would like to introduce Davide Zilli and Junichi Ikegami, who I'll refer to as June, if that's okay. So Davide and June, welcome to the Export to Japan podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. Really good to have you on board. I know you're both very, very busy guys, and we've been trying to track you down and find a convenient date for all of us for quite a while. So it's great that we could finally find time for all of us to come together and have this discussion. Now, to kick off, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about the background of Mind Foundry, where you came from and what it is that you guys are working on and what you do, please.
Yeah, sure. So Mind Foundry is an Oxford University company. We spun out of the engineering department in 2016, so just over 8 years ago. We are an AI company, and particularly we work in AI for high stakes. So that's problems and AI solutions that affect the lives of people, or even affects people at the scale of populations. And that's where actually working in insurance is excellent, because insurance gives us access to problems that really have that true population scale. We work in 3 sectors. We work in insurance, in civil infrastructure, and in defense and national security. And basically, we make AI algorithms and solutions. And they range from being deployed on satellites to, for example, monitor ground use and land use on the ground, to algorithms on a mobile phone or on cloud, to solve all sorts of different business and societal problems.
Fantastic. What a wonderful area you're working in, and how exciting to hear about the incredibly innovative work that you're doing. Now, Davide, when you and I first spoke, I think I'm right in saying that at the time, you were not, in your early stages, you were not necessarily strategically thinking about the Japanese market, and maybe it was on your radar a little bit, but it wasn't sort of something that you were prioritizing at that time. And I believe it was a little bit of a chance encounter, an unusual chance encounter that has kind of led to you with your Japan connections. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, sure. And Jun will probably also chip in, because he's really the mastermind behind this. But we really met at a conference, an AI conference in Oxford, and Jun was visionary and came to sort of see and absorb what what Oxford had to offer around AI, and maybe just shortly shy of a year later, we started a proof of concept together, and we continued conversation and started a proof of concept together. And then after 3 months of that POC, Jun and his team led a Series A investment in our company and started really our collaboration in earnest.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an incredible story. And there's so many parts of that story I want to sort of dive in and learn a little bit more about. But yeah, this would be a great time to bring you in, June, from your perspective. As Davide mentioned there, you were very instrumental in going to that conference in Oxford and making the first connection with Mind Foundry. So I'd be really curious, from our audience's perspective, which is mainly international companies looking to do business with Japanese companies. It's a really interesting insight there. So could you just tell us a little bit more about your role and why you went to that conference and what you were looking for, and just sort of expand on that a little bit? Tell us a little more about that, please.
Okay. So back in 2019, I was looking for a AI company who can support our AI development. And because we are insurer, we have large data set, and our business demand is not the one. So we have numerous business demand, and it's not the one fintech or insurtech. So I was looking for a company who can support various types of AI development. So I contacted Oxford University, and they introduced me to Foundry. And like Davide said, we did the POC, and I was surprised the quality of service, and then we decided to invest. And after 2 years of collaboration, so I suggest our headquarters, we expand our collaboration more. So we invested second time and established joint venture R&D Lab. So and I'm the CEO now.
That's amazing. What a great story, and how interesting to hear that. And I have to say, from the perspective of most of the work that we do, it is around helping international companies go over to Japan and connecting them and introducing them to Japanese companies over in Japan. But it's very interesting and exciting to hear the role that you are playing of being very proactive on your side, of being based over here in the UK and going out, talking to Oxford University, going to conferences, really proactively looking to track down potential partners that have the kind of expertise and the know-how that you were looking for. That's a very unique part of the operation. I mean, was that primarily what your role was at that time? Were you sent over to the UK and you were based here in order to try and find potential partners and collaborators? Is that a big part of what you?
So I was seconded to a UK branch in 2015 when we acquired UK's leading telematics service provider called InsureTheBox. And I was working for post-merger integration since 2015. And around 2018 or 19, it's done. And I was looking for a next opportunity. And because we operate telematics insurance businesses, we have lots of data. And I was looking for opportunity to utilize this data. So
got it. Yeah, very, very exciting and very interesting. Well, you've given us a little bit of an overview between you. You've both touched on the different steps in the journey after you first got engaged at that conference. But I would like to just explore that a little bit more, if I could. So just to recap on the notes I was making here as you were talking, you were saying that really within about a year or so of that initial engagement, when you guys met in Oxford and started talking, about a year later, you did that initial proof of concept project together. So from your perspective, Jun, what was that something that you would typically do some sort of initial project as like a pilot exercise to see how it goes? And is that your way of learning more about the partner? Could you explain a little bit more about your thinking on that, please?
Yeah, our pattern is to first identify a potential partner, and then start a POC. And if it's really good, we want to work more closely. So we want to invest. We start negotiation, and at that time, so Foundry accepted our investment. So yeah.
Fantastic. That's amazing. What a great success story. I mean, from your perspective, when you look back on that period, and I realize it's a number of years ago now, and you've probably had so many more recent things go through your head and your mind, so it may not be so clear to remember back. But from a general perspective, with you as a representative of a big Japanese corporation that is potentially looking to do some sort of partnership, initially a proof of concept and then potentially some sort of investment. What were the kind of things that were important to you when you were looking at at Foundry, which is obviously a foreign company? Are there some sort of key points that were important to you as you got to know them and as you started working together? Is there any sort of knowledge you could share for other international companies to learn from and think about as they develop their relationships with Japanese companies?
I think there are three things. One is, of course, quality, and two is professionalism. Three is to meet our business demand. As I said, we have lots of AI development demand, so company who can support that was required. So,
yeah, and those two first points you make really resonate with me. You mentioned quality and professionalism, and yeah, with my sort of 20 years plus experience of doing business in Japan since I set my first company up out there, that's one of the things that's really dawned on me that is so important. And I try to coach the companies we work with, the international companies, to really focus on that and understand the levels they need to get to in terms of quality and professionalism, especially when it's a more of a sort of early stage startup Western company that is looking to do business with a very well-established Japanese company. Making sure that everything is good from a quality perspective, and everything that you do, from the way you behave, the way you respond to requests, the information you provide, all has to be incredibly professional. So I endorse exactly those points you made, and that's obviously over and above the quality of the product or the service itself. It's those ethics of having a high quality mentality and a very professional outlook. So thank you for that, Jin. And Davide, if I could come over to you, from your perspective then, how, again, I realize it's a few years ago, so you might be having to go back in your mind a little bit, but can you remember those days, when you started engaging with such a large Japanese company and started that dialogue and obviously working on the POC and things like that? What was did you learn anything from that? What was your impression of that time? And thinking about these points about quality and professionalism and things, were they key issues that were on your mind, or did you have to learn your way through that as it unfolded?
Yeah, I would be lying if I said that we didn't learn through it. I think it was a big challenge, and but we were a fairly small and very, very enthusiastic and passionate company that wanted really to deliver. So this was a very good opportunity for us to show that we could deliver, that we had the ability to, and with a great data set. The POC was on detecting crashes in motor telematics, basically with telematics data. So it was really like something up our sleeve, something that we are really sort of in our strength, basically. And so we really tried our best to deliver to the customer, to what they want, to the requirements, basically. But I think one of the key things that we learned as well is that large businesses like Aioi are really looking for understanding what AI is about as well, and what it's not about as well. And so a big part of that initial engagement for us was also like the knowledge share and knowledge transfer on AI, and that sort of comes a bit from a academic background as well, and being spun out of the university. So we really put a lot of effort into trying to communicate what AI is and what it does for a business. And in the meantime, I think we had a really positive relationship because we learned a lot about insurance, which we had very little idea about. So it was really a two-way knowledge transfer that was very good for us, and I think very good for Aioi as well.
Yeah, that's amazing and so fascinating. And in fact, I wanted to ask you a question on a point you made there. So back in the early days, before you had this engagement and got involved in this relationship and this discussion, had you guys even thought about the insurance market as a market you should be operating in, or was that part of what your Japanese partner brought to the table, that market opportunity? Where did you sit with that?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because he was definitely on our radar, but we didn't have any company to work with in the sector. So Aioi was the first contact in insurance. So we wanted to, but didn't have the opportunity, and it's very difficult to break into a market where we can't show any track record. So actually, this opportunity that came inbound to an extent, it was great, and it started ramped up quite quickly, and then from the POC ramped up even more quickly. And so it really gave us exposure to a lot of different processes, underwriting, claims management, a lot of the sort of challenges that businesses in insurance have, and all of the data that they've got, and gave us the exposure to build solutions for that market. So definitely was new for us.
That's fabulous. And I guess what that does emphasize is another value, that if you, as an international company, if you find the right Japanese partner company to work with, there's so much value they can bring. You know, they can help lift and make sure you're reaching the right quality standards, the right professionalism, etc., the bits we discussed. But also they can bring the value of market intelligence and the sort of commercial input in how to take solutions to market and which direction to go in. So that looks like a very evident value that was brought to this proposition from the Japan side here.
Yeah, massively. And for us, actually, perhaps a useful step was that we first engaged with the UK branch, where Aioi has a smaller UK branch, obviously nowhere near as big as the Japanese headquarters. So it was like a stepping stone to really understand the market and the problems. And then we could expand from there to a much larger market in Japan with the main headquarters of Aioi.
Very good. Yeah. June, if I could just come back to you for a moment, because I am so fascinated by the steps that you went through as your two organizations engaged and developed your relationship. Would you say that process you went through, initially engaging, 1 year later working on a proof of concept project together, then an initial investment, and then a larger investment, and then a joint JV R&D lab, is that a fairly typical process that a large Japanese corporate would go through? Are they the kind of steps, you know, do they initially do some project together as part of the process of getting to know each other and making sure everybody's comfortable and things are working smoothly, and then step by step make more of a commitment? Would you, from your experience, you know, as a Japanese executive, is that a typical kind of process that Japanese companies would go through?
I don't know about other companies' processes, but I think creating a joint venture is not common among Japanese, large enterprises, and I think our success heavily depends on the creation of the joint venture. So, because creating a joint venture means both sides committed themselves to the collaboration. So of course, for the first 2 years collaboration, so our collaboration was successful, but creating joint venture itself is another success. And after the creation, we have more. So sorry, I don't know, if it's typical or not, but
yeah, it's not
typical. I don't think it's typical, but yeah.
It's a great answer you've given us, and very, an interesting insight into the way the Japanese side thinks, because as I said in my introduction, there's no hard and fast perfect way to do this ever. Is that every example is always a little bit different. So just understanding a little bit of the way you approached it in this case, and clearly things have gone well and been very successful. So it's great to get your insight into those factors. So thank you for sharing that with us. In terms of bringing it right up to date then with this joint venture, with this R&D lab, can I ask what this actually looks like? How big is this lab? Where is it based? What are you doing? Are there a combination of Japanese members there and other internationals there? And if I could understand a little bit more about that would be very helpful, please.
So our office is in a Mind Foundry's office. So and our employees, so Japanese employees about 10, and we also hire Oxford PhD. So we have 4 PhD, and so that's Aioi R&D Lab Oxford employees. But we are collaborating with insurance side, Aioi Nissay Dowa Europe, and Aioi Nissay Dowa Insurance, which is our headquarters. So I don't know how many people are working, but it's more than 15. And our core theme of R&D is centering around risk. So because we are insurer, so our focus is risk, but the field is multiple. For example, it's a motor, and so we develop telematics algorithm, and also so because insurance is prone to fraud, so we are developing a fraud detection, or we are jointly developing aging infrastructure diagnostics to identify which, for example, bridges face challenges to some defect, so we can cities needs to fix as soon as possible. So that kind of thing. So
very interesting. A couple of really interesting examples of the solutions that you're developing by using this know-how and this technology. Really, really interesting. In terms of your commercial model moving forward, are you working on a kind of a global basis with your solutions, or are you focusing on the Japan market at the moment, or what are your thoughts on where you will take these solutions in terms of the customers that you'll be looking to target?
So initially we started UK business, but now we expanded fully to Japan business and also EU, and we are trying to expand it to US or Australia or Thailand. So it's a global. It's getting global now.
Very good. Very, very impressive. And then in terms of the next steps going ahead, you guys have clearly come an awful long way in a very short space of time, realistically, to get to get from that initial meeting at that conference or that seminar in Oxford to get to this point you're in a relatively short space of time is hugely impressive. And I'm sure that's been a lot of hard work on your side to make all of that happen. What about the future? Are you able to share any thoughts on your roadmap or your business plans, or how you could see this partnership collaborating further? Anything you could share with us on that?
Me or
okay, June or Davide, or both of you will be happy to hear from.
Maybe if I start.
Thank you.
And yeah, I mean I think very important for the joint venture to continue to progress well is that we show that we're delivering business value. It's not we are really attached to problems that for which we have a solution, for which we can sort of show that there is tangible, concrete value for our business, for Aioi, and for Aioi's customers as well. So that's really important to continue get the commitment from all sides of the business. But with that, as we deliver more of that value, we actually also have the ability to focus on the societal problems that the joint venture was actually established to tackle, which is great. June mentioned a few. I think one of the ones that I find particularly fascinating is the tackling of this aging infrastructure problem. A lot of the infrastructure, like bridges and roads, and are really going through a moment of crisis for reaching an age that is becomes dangerous, and there's not enough budget around all of the local authorities and the national authorities to actually fix all of the problems. So what we are using Aioi's data and Aioi's partnerships data and Foundry's AI model is to prioritize. If you have a limited budget, which you always do, where should you invest it to repair or fix or do some predictive maintenance? So it's really something that could have a profound societal impact. And we've seen disasters recently in the news. So preventing that is a great item on our roadmap as a joint venture.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great to hear, and a fantastic summary. June, did Davide cover everything there, or is there anything you would like to add to that from your perspective?
Yeah, he covered almost everything. So because we are so successful to tackle societal issues, challenges, so we try to expand it. Another challenges, another social issues. So not only aging infrastructure, but we are also tackling aging people. So so initially, our telematics is a tool to for safe driving for young people. But because people are aging, especially in Japan, people are aging, and we see a terrible accident. So we try to identify people who show a sign of cognitive decline using driving data. So that kind of things. So aging people. Also, these days, because of climate change, we need a more accurate climate model to tackle climate issues. So we have lots of things that we want to expand from a theme perspective, but also location perspective. As I said, not only UK, EU, Japan, but we want to expand more regionally. So we have lots of things.
You really do. You've come, as I said, you've come a long way in a very short space of time, but you have some big plans to keep going on that journey too. But how wonderful to hear those great causes that you're involved in, you're supporting too. Great causes for society to help improve so many different aspects of society, and it must be wonderful to be, from your perspective, to be working on solutions to help in those key areas. So that's great. We're coming towards the conclusion now, but Davide, I just wanted to come back to you and put you on the spotlight a little bit, if I may, because when June answered the question a little bit earlier about what, from his perspective, what he was looking for in terms of the international partner company that he would be potentially working with, I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, having had a few years now of working with your Japanese colleagues and kind of working on a day-to-day basis with your Japanese colleagues, are there any little snippets that you could share for other international companies following along behind you that are either looking to do business in Japan or maybe have just started an engagement with Japanese partners or customers or something like that? From your perspective of what you may have learned from working with Japanese colleagues and interacting with Japanese colleagues, anything that comes to your mind that you could share on that, please?
That's a difficult one, because there is a lot to say there, and I think there is obviously a big cultural difference that shouldn't be underestimated, and it took us a long time to learn, and we are certainly not there. Like, we are still learning a lot on the differences, and some of them are very small and minor. Some might be a bit more. Some parts of it might be a bit more substantial. I always have there's one that always makes me laugh. A very small one, but a big difference in slide decks. Whenever we have presentations, in UK, we try to be, and possibly actually more generally in the West, a good, well-designed presentation is minimal in content, very concise, very to the point, and whenever our Japanese colleagues present to us, the slides are jam-packed with content all over. And initially we were like, oh, these guys are amateurs. They don't know anything about good design, and they're probably thinking the same with us. There's like, these guys are lazy. They don't have even time to put text on their slide and content. They probably put this together in 5 minutes. But it's like one of those things that is actually culturally is different, and you just have to learn. And I think the dialogue is very important there. We told each other, hey, this is not like what we're expecting, and so I think you learn to work through those things. But like, I would say that when the Japanese business says and commits to something, they really follow through, which is something that for a company our size is very important, and I really appreciate of the culture. Like, the commitment has been always there and growing, and is I think that stability and really, like, I think the culture, like if they and a Japanese person says something, they really follow through. I think that is cultural, and so I really appreciate that in the culture and also in business, to be honest, in doing business together. There's a million other anecdotes that we could share, but yeah. I would say don't underestimate the cultural difference, and really try to learn as much as possible about it.
Thank you. That such great wisdom you've just shared with us there. And I was just laughing as soon as you mentioned the presentation example, because of course I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been there many times myself, so I could relate to exactly that one. And that is a perfect illustration, actually, of a much wider point that you're making, and it is a point very, very well made. And I think, sort of, building on that great point you made, for anyone listening in today to the podcast, obviously on the Export to Japan website, we have a ton of content to help you through these very points that Davide just touched on, and some of the stuff that Jun touched on a little bit earlier. So our Japanese business etiquette page on the Export to Japan website is one of the most popular pages for people to consume content. So lots more good tips that people can pick up on, building on those great examples that you've just mentioned there, Davide. So thank you for sharing that. Good. Well, listen, guys, time always goes so quickly, and we've sort of come to the end of our time slot, but we've certainly covered all the points that I was looking forward to on this discussion, and plenty of others. So thank you both for being so candid and so open, while I've been asking these intrusive questions into your kind of relationship and your commercial arrangements. But as I'm sure you can tell, it's just so valuable for other companies that are following along to look at you guys as great role models in how you've come together and how you've achieved so much in a relatively short space of time, and clearly intend to carry on achieving much more. And I'm really looking forward to watching from the side as you guys continue to develop and grow your business and grow your relationship together. So thank you both so much. And for anyone listening in to this podcast, I hope you found that really useful. I was super excited to get these guys on board, because as soon as I became aware of the way that they developed their relationship and the way they initially connected, for example, it's just a great example to share for others to follow along. And many little tips and wisdoms I hope we've pulled out of this to help everyone else on this journey. So I hope everyone listening in has found that useful too. So just leaves me to say thank you once again, Davide. Thank you so much for your time. Really good to catch up with you again. And June, it was the first time we've met, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, congratulations to you on the amazing work. You've clearly been at the front and center of making all of this happen from day one, and you've achieved so much. And I'm sure you will carry on to achieve so much more. And I look forward to watching that journey. So thank you both for your time today. It's been a great pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.